So earlier this year, Giant launched the proper entry into the dual suspension range for kids. Something that's not just a putter along bike, something that's like real purpose driven so that kids and youth riders can enjoy the entire mountain, from sending big jumps to bombing descents and pedaling right back up. It's called the Faith. And this is it here. We've had it for 6 months now. A couple of the Revo lads have been riding it, like Jacko here, and getting a bunch of different miles up. We've been taking on some road trips. So we thought we'd just check back in this edit and sort of tell you how we've been getting along. Now, if you want to check out our first impressions on this bike, check out our channel. I'll put a link below as well to that. But this is the Faith 24. The 24, it means it's 24-inch wheels front and rear. There's another model in the Faith which shares the same frame, but it's a mullet and it's got a 27.5 front and a 26 rear. In this particular version, like I mentioned, is the 2.4. It's got a 140mm fork up front and 130 in the rear. Wasn't sure how that would be in terms of like enough travel to tackle big trucks, but since Jacko and my little man Calvi have been riding this bike, we've been riding some proper lines. We've done a thread bow trip, and 130mm, I think, especially because like the leverage of the legs is shorter, you know, they weigh sort of between 30 and 40 kilos. That 130mm is giving them plenty of travel without being overkill. And the 2.4 wheels are allowing to really sort of throw the bike around and manipulate the bike. One thing that Jack keeps mentioning, and Calvi does too, is the bike's nice and light. Even though it's decked out with like proper chunky Maxxis tires and proper brakes and proper everything, the actual bike isn't a real heifer like we find a lot of the sort of youth bikes that we've tested in the past have been. Like, they look cool, but when you go to lift them up, it's pretty heavy for like an adult. So when the kid gets on it, the bike kind of, it's hard for them to throw around. They're not very nimble. And the heavier bike too tends to fall over, and then the kid generally crashes because they're going with the bike. But a bike like this is allowing the boys to kind of really control the ride and change direction a lot easier and move the bike around the trail. Another thing that both the boys are commenting on, so it's got a 10-speed drivetrain, and it's also got a dropper post. So what that's actually letting them do is pedal back up the hills. In the years past, even earlier this year, we were using shuttle ropes to get the boys back up the fire roads and whatnot when we would go riding. But on this bike, one of the cool things is that both the kids that have been riding it, they've been able to ride a lot more themselves, which is awesome for us because we're not having to stop and connect them to our bike. But also, it's giving the kid a lot more freedom and independence, which is really cool. Now, we talked a bit about the spec in that first intro vid. One of the real highlights has to be these tires. Now, they might look familiar, and that's because they're literally a carbon copy or identical to the tires that us adults run, the Minions. Minion front rear, super good, and obviously it's got those super soft rubber, so heaps of traction and grip. And what that means is, when the kids are riding a trail like this, it's a little bit like soft surface, they can hook in with heaps of confidence that the tire's gonna grip up. And so they're ripping around corners heaps more than they would in the past. And a lot of kids' bikes seem to come with tires that are like kind of made of plastic. Whereas these guys, proper mountain bike tires, and also allows them to run a lower pressure. So again, they're getting more grip and it's giving them more confidence when they're ripping down the trail. So yeah, let's just talk about suspension, because that's another thing that we touched on a lot in the first impressions. Giant haven't just gone with an off-the-shelf like RockShox or whatever brand. They actually created this crest suspension themselves. So there's a fork and the rear shock. The reason they created themselves is because it allowed them to create the circuits inside the fork, so use a lot less air. So basically they're custom for a youth rider or younger riders, where they weight, like I mentioned, 30, 40 kilos. All the circuits, the rebound circuit, the compression circuits are perfectly designed to work with that kind of weight. So they're actually entering the travel, and it's really, really plush. They can get them moving up and down without like a traditional fork from other brands. When they have youth, they don't really have youth models. And so what that means is usually the fork's either fully locked out or it's got so little air that it doesn't have proper rebound. Whereas these guys, like I said, they started from scratch, they built their own stuff, and it's really proven itself out there on the trails. Both the boys have kind of commented how smooth the bike gets. And as an observer, like when I stood there and we've been taking photos, another thing I noticed how quiet the bike is. It might be because that 1-speed or that 1x10-speed drivetrain, but also the tires, the suspension, the whole thing in unison really works well to kind of soften the ride. And again, like I keep sort of harping on about, it's giving them lots of confidence. Full alloy frame from front to rear. Giant make awesome alloy bikes. This is essentially a shrunken down version of a Trance or a Rain, specifically for youth riders. So it's all those proven technologies that Giant have developed over like the past decades, really. Like we said, super high quality, really, really good aluminium frame there. So yeah, 6 months on the trails. The report card on this thing is unbelievable. Bit of an investment for sure, but like I said in that first intro video, and when I kind of started thinking about the bike and the concept of what Giant have aimed for, I really think they've hit it out of the park. Like the bikes that you and I are riding are probably what, 5 to 10 grand? We take our kids out, why should they have, you know, a crapper? Why shouldn't they have something that can actually like really allow them to unlock the trail and for them to be able to enjoy the experience just as much as we do? A bike like this has proven itself in that way, from the frame to the spec. There's no attention to detail on this thing that Giant haven't, or the Giant's development team haven't looked into and factored in. And yeah, the Faith range, absolutely awesome. Definitely worth checking out if you want to get your kid a bike that's a real mountain bike. Something that can really unlock the trail and get out there with you, experience the trail themselves. Like I said, sending jumps, hitting rough sections. The Giant Faith range is definitely cool. In store at dealers across Australia right now. Like I said, there's a mullet version, 2.4 version, definitely worth checking out. So Jacko, tell us a bit about the bike. You've been riding all day. How's it feel on the fast stuff?
Good.
Tell us a bit more. So what's your favorite thing about the bike?
The suspension.
The suspension?
Yep.
How does the suspension feel?
Good. When you land, it's soft.
Yeah, right. And does that make it easier to hit bigger jumps?
Yep.
Yeah, right. How does it, tell me what it's like to go around corners.
Good.
Sweet. Have you done any skids yet?
Yep.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to do when you ride?
Jumps and wheelies and skids.
Jumps, wheelies and skids.
Yep.
What do you think of the frame?
Good.
What do you like about the look of the frame?
The colour.
That's pretty good, man.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
Nah.
Nah. Knuckles, bro. Thanks, man.